Hello everyone, my name is Hank Kracher, and I will be presenting a series of three PowerPoint presentations for this unique, shall we say, visit to Egypt. The tour is called Immortal Light, and our host is, of course, Johnny Enoch. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend, but I have prepared a series of three lectures. First two are rather short. The last one, you might have to break it into two parts depending on your schedule. They do revolve around the idea of the serpent and as it relates to the mysteries. The first one is entitled 13, Serpent Number Discovered. Of course, many people consider 13 unlucky. Well, I hope to change everyone's mind. It is certainly unlucky, and it is also lucky. Fear of the number 13 has a specifically recognized phobia called, forgive my ignorance here, triskaidekaphobia, a word first coined in 1910 by Isidore Couriet, an abnormal psychologist. Superstitious sufferers attempt to avoid bad luck by keeping away from anything numbered or labeled 13. And, to be honest with you, I kind of felt the same way at one point. But by studying the mysteries, you learn to appreciate the number 13 or other numbers as well, numerology. As such, and for good reason, as will be discussed, humans have been conditioned to avoid 13 in almost everything we do. Like companies and manufacturers, avoiding the number in labeling, avoiding numbering the 13th floor of a hotel, hotels, or a fear of Friday the 13th. One such tale originated with a Norse myth about the 12 gods having a dinner party in Valhalla. As the story goes, the trickster god Loki, who was not invited, arrived as the 13th guest and arranged for Hor to shoot Balder with a mistletoe-tipped arrow. After Balder died, the whole earth got dark, and the whole earth mourned. It was an unlucky day. This major event in Norse mythology helped cause the number 13 to be considered unlucky. And now we're going to talk about the Last Supper, Judas, the 13th man. You can see him on the far right-hand side. Another significant legend comes from the story of Jesus and the Last Supper. As the story goes, and despite the Bible saying nothing about it, Judas, the disciple who betrayed Jesus, was the 13th man sitting at the table. In attendance were Jesus, Peter, Andrew, James, John, Matthew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, James, Judd, Simon, and Judas. Of course, Judas, the 13th guest, has come to represent bad luck. Of course, now we can talk about the Holy Bible and 13. In biblical tradition, the concept of unlucky Fridays stretches back even further than the crucifixion. Friday is said to be the day that Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. Of course, good and evil, right? The day Cain murdered his brother Abel. The day the Temple of Solomon was toppled. And the day Noah's Ark set sail in the Great Flood. Of course, now we're going to talk about Knights Templar and Friday the 13th. Another popular theory is based on an event that happened in 1307. As the story goes, King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V conspired together to arrest the Knights Templar on Friday, October 13th, 1307. As a result, our culture has been further conditioned to fear Friday the 13th as an unlucky day. Of course, we don't really think of the Norse mythology when we think about the 13th. We have a tendency to think of more as Friday the 13th as Halloween, and of course that legend, as the popular tale goes, comes from the Knight Templar roundup on Friday the 13th. Of course, omission of 13, and because of that superstition, it is omitted everywhere. Rooms, floors, and decks. Most interestingly, it is not uncommon that ships, including cruise liners, have omitted having a 13th deck due to this phobia. Instead, decks are numbered up to 12 and skip straight to number 14. Now, a lot of times, I've learned this over the years, they just don't bypass 13 and put the 14th floor. They usually, in order for that to be complete, they'll have what they call a subfloor in there. So there's actually a floor. And a lot of times it's used for electrical or plumbing, or it's very small indeed. But there is a actual 13th floor to most buildings. Just people just don't know about it. As well, hotels, buildings, and elevator manufacturers have also avoided using the number 13 for rooms and floors for the same reason. Now, let's kind of twist it around a little bit. Okay, lucky 13 is, of course, the sign of the serpent in a more favorable light. Both numbers both cases, bad and evil, as I will display later on, is the serpent, right? Adam and Eve, think about that. Adam and Eve, when they were confronted by the serpent, what were they offered? Both good and evil. Okay, so when you start looking about 13, you're going to see it a little bit differently. But number 13 is the serpent's number. Genesis 3:5 basically said, "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil," or lucky and unlucky. Yeah, but people have a phobia and they carry it throughout their life. Friday the 13th, Halloween, it's bad, right? 13 is bad. Not really, but I think oftentimes in the Christian world, in particular, maybe other cultures as well, but from my own experience, definitely in the Christian world, because of the association with the serpent. So now we see good and evil fighting for control. Both Mithras, the Persian redeemer, and Serpent, the Egyptian god of the earth, are symbolized by serpents. This remarkable drawing shows the good and evil. I don't know what happened to the rest of the sign there, but it was both good and bad, or both good and evil. All right, and you can see it right here. I don't know, somehow we got cut off there. Now this is interesting, just to kind of give you an idea of how society perceives 13. It's a powerful number in our culture, Western culture, particularly the United States. It's called the 13 Club, or the 13th Club. Basically, in 1882, a group of influential men in New York came together to form a secret society called the 13 Club. Okay? They first met on January 13, 1881 at 8:13 p.m. 13 people sat around to dine in room 13 of the venue. The guests walked under a ladder to enter the room and were seated among piles of spilled salt. Many 13 clubs sprang up all over North America over the next 45 years, but declined when secret societies lost favor. 5 United States presidents were members: Chester Arthur, Grover Cleveland, Benjamin Harrison, William McKinley, and Theodore Roosevelt. The 13 Club pushed the limits of superstition more and more every year. In 1887, it was reported that not only did members of the club repeat the practice of dining 13 to a table and meeting on the 13th of the month at 13 minutes past the hour, but they threw in a new twist. They tested the old wives' tale that if the individual's candle burnt out, he first died within a year. So, at 13 minutes of 10 to a second, the candle belonging to Dr. Alan Fitch flickered, sputtered, and flared up for an instant, and then went out, but the man looked on very calm and unaffected. So in essence, 13 Club, they got together, and probably a lot of them were Freemasons and other members, but they came together to say, hey, wait a minute, 13 isn't necessarily a bad number. It may, and it's significant to control people, but you want to look at it in a different light, particularly when you understand it's the number of the serpent. So we have some lessons from the 13 Club, right? The 13 Club was originally formed to prove that the world is not what most people think it is. You see, not everyone is willing to bend to the superstitious world. In defiance of such assumptions, there exist groups of people who have stood up to these dark beliefs, like the 13 Club. Individuals and groups like secret societies, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and so forth, still meet and study our ancient past in order to discover the truth about the world most people can't comprehend and don't want to understand. For you see, there is always an element of truth in most folklore tales. So, secrets of 13, the serpent number, right? Many secret societies, as mentioned earlier, like Freemasons, Masonry, Rosicrucianism, etc., embrace the ancient teachings of 13, the serpent's number. For example, the beehive is found in Masonry as a reminder that in diligence and labor for a common good, true happiness and prosperity are found. Right? The beehive. You wouldn't think about it, but let me go a little bit further and you'll understand the relationship. Likewise, the bee is a symbol of wisdom. For as this tiny insect collects pollen from the flowers, so men may extract wisdom from the experiences of daily life. However, and unknown to most people, the bee is sacred to the goddess Venus, the serpent planet, and goddess of the 13th constellation, the morning star, Jesus, etc. And according to mystics, is one of several forms of life that came to the earth from the planet Venus millions of years ago. Wheat and bananas are said to be of the similar origin. This is the reason why the origin of these and other forms of life cannot be traced. Interestingly, the fact that bees are ruled by queens is one reason why this insect is considered a sacred feminine symbol, and is quite often, to be honest with you, is used within Masonic and Rosicrucian lodges. Now you can see by the same token there is a beehive cluster constellation, also called the Gate of Men, the Manger, which is near Venus. No coincidence. The ancient Greeks called this cluster Praesepe, and they believed that they were peering into the floor of heaven, called the Gate of Men, where souls descended from heaven to earth to be born. So you can see that it's called Messier 44, open star cluster 515 light years away. Nice number. Also known as the beehive cluster, Praesepe, Gate of Men, Manger. Now, I find this most interesting because a lot of people think the earth is round. Well, not everyone believes that, not especially in the mysteries, okay? And that's a whole nother discussion for another day, but please go with it for a while. And there's a couple explanations for the egg shape as well as the serpent encompassing the egg, okay? So, in Isis Unveiled, Blavatsky, a co-Mason and Theosophist, made this significant statement concerning the origin of serpent worship. Before our globe had become egg-shaped, or round, it was a long trail of cosmic dust, or fire mist, moving and wreathing like a serpent. This, say the explanations, was the Spirit of God moving on the chaos until its breath had incubated cosmic matter and made it assume the annular ring shape of a serpent with its tail, get this one, tail in its month, not mouth, like many people think. Think about it, right? She wrote, with its tail in its month. the 13th month. Yeah, so different to look at Ouroboros that way, right? All right, emblem, eternity in its spiritual and of our world in its physical shape. Notice she wrote a serpent with its tail in its month, not mouth, like Ouroboros. The question must be asked, think about it, why? Was she alluding to something? That's the neat thing about when you read. I mean, I love videos, and they're great. They tease you a little bit and everything. But if you really want to know what these people were thinking, you need to go in and read their work and study it. Oftentimes a paragraph a day. Because they wrote it in such a way that it, honestly, they're secrets. And that's oftentimes why when I read Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, I break it down paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, word by word. And you find there are tremendous secrets within. So, 33-degree Freemason Manly P. Hall wrote the following in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, 1928. The ancient symbol of the Orphic Mysteries was the serpent-entwined egg, which signified cosmos, as encircled by the fury creative spirit. The egg also represents the soul of the philosopher, the serpent, the mysteries. Think about that. The egg represents the soul of the philosopher, you. The serpent, the mysteries. Follow the serpent. That will become clearer as we go through our series of 3 lectures. At the time of initiation, the shell is broke, and man emerges from the embryonic state of physical existence, wherein he had remained through the fetal period of philosophic regeneration. Now, Manly P. Hall also talked about philosophic death. So having a good reason for faking your death, or having a good reason for regeneration, philosophic regeneration. Interesting. Thus, the serpent-entwined egg represents the cosmos, which is another name for the universe. Therefore, using the word cosmos implies viewing the universe as a complex and orderly system or eternity. And here we go, the serpent eating its own month. Not mouth, month. Now we're going to talk about the Great White Brotherhood in relationship to the secret of 13, the serpent number. The true Great White Brotherhood is said to have originated from the planet Venus, number 13, right? Think about that, the serpent planet. This planetary tale dates back to Sumeria, about 6000 BC, and some say even before. I have no doubt before. Yet it was not until Egypt, before this society became first officially documented as a working sect. So people went, wait, the Great White Brotherhood. Wait, yeah. The Great White Brotherhood came from Venus, the serpent planet. Interesting, huh? And Jesus, right, was, right, the morning star, Venus, the serpent planet. As mentioned previously, you can't miss the serpent planet, Venus. You can't. It's the brightest thing in the western sky after sunset. And Venus is the morning star with the sunrise. The morning star was the name Venus, and Jesus also called himself the morning star. Likewise, Ophiuchus, the serpent bear, is considered by some to be the 13th constellation. So you can see here Ophiuchus, right, the serpent bear constellation. Famed Freemason, Rosicrucian, and Golden Dawn member Arthur Edward Waite wrote the following. God indeed hath already sent messengers which should testify his will, to wit, some new stars which have appeared in Serpentarius, or Ophiuchus, and Cygnus, constellation depicted as a swan. So you have Serpentarius, right, which is the serpent, depicted with the serpent. And of course, the Cygnus is the constellation depicted by a swan. I'm sure we've seen that before. The which powerful signs of a great council, of course the Great White Brotherhood, right, shew forth how for all things which human ingenuity discovers, God calls upon his hidden knowledge, as likewise the book of nature, though it stands open truly for all eyes, can be read or understood by only a very few. Yeah, do you have eyes to see and ears to hear? Yeah, the common saying, right? So Ophiuchus, it's a zodiacal constellation of the northern summer, is said to depict a man holding a serpent. The serpent is the constellation Serpents. And here we go. They're serpents. Therefore, Ophiuchus is the 13th sign of the zodiac, and for good reason is also known as the forgotten zodiac constellation, and can be traced all the way back to the 27th century BCE. He is also known as Imhotep, patterned after Anki in ancient Egypt, and Asclepius in Greece, and is the god of medicine and doctors. Sounds like the sign of the Kundalini, doesn't it? He, as shown in the previous slide, is always depicted holding a great serpent or snake. In Greek mythology, Ophiuchus was able to heal the world and make its people immortal. It is also theorized that modern astrology has made a mockery of the current lunar calendar of 12 planets, or 12 months, right? Prior to Greek and Roman disfigurement, there were 13 equal months of 28 days, with one day left over for celebrations. And that would have been leap year, right? This is where the idea of a leap year comes from. This was accomplished to hide the Earth's connection to the serpent planet Venus, which is in the 13th constellation, the Serpent Bear. Venus, as mentioned previously, was the original home of the Great White Brotherhood and often referred to as the White Light Planet. Furthermore, these were represented as Dionysus or Osiris, who are also called Venus in their ancient respective cultures, all of which were represented by serpents. Venus is the ruler of the serpents, serpent energy, spirit fire, and Kundalini. Venus also rules wisdom, mystical transformation of the soul, and its symbol is the pentagram, which is often displayed with a serpent, signifying its relationship to serpentine power. And most importantly, Venus is the planet of immortality. Of course, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this PowerPoint presentation on your tour here in Egypt. Again, I'd like to thank Johnny Enoch and wish everyone a wonderful time at Egypt, and hopefully we can cross paths in the future. Please look forward to my 2 other videos that will be coming out that he'll be showing shortly. And thank you all, and God bless.